All right, everyone, continuing with the notes for Chapter 5, starting off with Section 6 of your notes. And as we go through these next several sections, you're probably going to want to have your textbook right handy. The notes refer to different things inside some different charts that are in your textbook, so you may find that handy. Talking about day part audiences and the day part ratings page that Nielsen provides. The day part audience section divides viewing into 37 day parts and 26 different people categories. And tracking is comparing current ratings numbers to previous performances. So this is a chart that helps to be able to show how many different persons in different age demographics are viewing particular content, broken down by women and men, and also looking at things like the percentage of distribution as it goes to metros and various households, and all kinds of other sorts of information as it relates to how programming is rated in a particular day part. Time period averages are useful for determining a program's strength against the competition for a specific time period. So you can see how well your particular program at that particular time slot is doing against a competitor's show in that same time slot. Program audiences, and that is also in your textbook on page 182. The program audience ratings page breaks each day part and program into 30-minute segments. The pure programming section allows for each program to be analyzed individually. So this is a rather useful tool to look at elements program by program by program. Syndicated program reports on page 183. There's a sample of that here. This enables programmers to estimate the likely performance of a syndicated program and to schedule it effectively in their lineup. So this would be for those that are looking to bring a certain program on to their station, and they can compare what's happening in other markets. Before purchasing a syndicated program, station programmers typically choose markets that are similar to their own to determine day parts, strengths and weaknesses, competition, and demographic appeal. So if you are a programmer of a TV station in a mid-sized market, in an area that may have a certain type of person living in your area, you may try to look for a market that has similar characteristics to see how well that program is doing and try to make a comparison. Some computerized services. Local station programmers use computer software to schedule shows and print logs. In many cases, this is called traffic software. So we're not talking about traffic in terms of, backups on I-40, but traffic is the system that schedules programming content and commercial content throughout the broadcast day on a TV or a radio station. Nielsen stores raw diary information on a secure website and listed by all sorts of different values as indicated on your screen as examples. Program availabilities, syndicated programs not yet under contract in a particular market. So when programmers are looking to fill time with certain types of programming, they could see what programs are available to go under contract and consider those shows for their particular station. Third-party companies offer analyzed versions of raw data from Nielsen because there's a lot of different reports to go through and they all say all sorts of different things. So it is valuable to some programmers to subscribe to the services of these third parties to help them to understand what all the data means and, more importantly, what that data means to their particular situation at their station. As far as radio goes, radio stations compare their share of the audience and their cumulative audience to that of other stations with similar formats in the same market. A good example of that in Raleigh would be that 94.7 QDR would be paying very close attention to what the folks at B93.9 are doing, since they're both country music stations. The age and sex categories used in radio differ from those used for television because radio stations target their programming to more precisely defined demographic groups. And this makes sense when you consider that broadcast television in particular tends to have more generalized audiences, that they're trying to reach different demographics at different times of day, different days of the week. Whereas in radio, generally you're targeting the same demographic with all of your content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Metro audience trends. This reports a station's metro shares for 5 ratings books covering a period of about a year. And you can look at information on your textbook about that in greater detail. Demographic breakouts, specific audience and listening locations data help programmers to see which day parts draw which audience subgroups and where listeners most use the station. So here we're not just looking at demographics of people in terms of age and sex and particular taste interests, but we're also looking at behavior. We're looking at activity. And that has a certain impact. Are people listening in the car? Are people listening at work? Are they networking with different types of people when they listen? All those sorts of things come into play. Other analysis includes hour by hour, exclusive audience, cum duplication. All of these are tools to help radio stations to be able to strategize their programming content in light of their target audience, in terms of the competition, and in terms of attracting advertisers as well. Time spent listening, TSL, is calculated using the formula you see on your screen. It is the multiplier of the AQH in the time period versus the AQH audience, taking that product, dividing it by the cum audience. This gets you your TSL in quarter hours. If you want to get an hour figure, just take that number and divide by 4. Turnover is the rate at which an audience changes during a time period. A low turnover rate indicates a loyal audience. A high turnover means the station lacks holding power. And you see the equation for turnover here. It's the cum number, the number of unique listeners or viewers, and that is divided by the AQH, households or persons. So if you've got a pretty decent cum, but you don't have a high AQH number, that means people are tuning in. You've got enough of unique listeners, but they're not sticking around for a very long time. Cable ratings. On the local market level, individual cable networks are included in Nielsen's Cable Activity Report when they achieve a 3% share of the audience. Nielsen measures cable service audiences along with broadcast station audiences in the all-market sweep. So there is a comparison in an apples-to-apples sort of way of broadcast TV versus cable TV. To qualify for inclusion in the standard television sweeps reports, a cable service must reach 20% of net weekly circulation. In other words, 20% of the market's television households must view it for at least 5 minutes during the survey week. So, if you subscribe to cable and you tune in to the Food Channel for at least 5 minutes in a week, and 1/5 of the population does the same thing, then Food Network will show up in those reports. Other services provide detailed demographic and behavioral information in annual reports as well. Premium services. Movies, the largest element in premium service programming, appears in repeating and rotating patterns to attract large cumulative audiences for each feature. So it's a bit of a different programming strategy here, where you don't have the same movie on at the same time each week. You know, you're not going to tune in and find Who Framed Roger Rabbit every Thursday night at 9. But if they're showing that particular movie, they might show it Thursday at 9 o'clock, then Friday at 10 in the morning, then Saturday in the middle of the night, and do several showings at different time slots for a period of time in order to be able to get as many different viewers as they possibly can, because they're showing the program at all those different times and different days. Various incarnations of each channel, whether it be standard definition, high definition, digital, make it so that counting and matching viewers from system to system has insurmountable difficulties. We don't see that as much anymore, since most programming these days tends to come out in high definition. But there is still that possibility that because we're looking at unique counts from each of those different platforms, trying to bring all those together can be somewhat of a challenge. Premium channel cable programmers use the ratings information available to them to judge individual program popularity and channel popularity as a whole. So if you are subscribing to a particular premium network, say HBO, for example, the goal of the network is going to be to keep you subscribing to that premium service. And they're going to judge whether or not you are likely to stay subscribed based on whether you are watching particular movies and if you're watching the channel in and of itself. The cumulative audiences for all showings of a top-notch movie on HBO equal the size of a television network's audience. Again, because they're counting each incarnation of the show as one particular event, you are going to find that, you might have the same sort of numbers for a particular show on a broadcast network, where the broadcast network is counting that one showing on that one day, versus the premium networks counting all the particular incarnations of that show's airing. The quarterly cross-platform video report and the video recorder usage study helps paid cable programmers make sense of reported viewing. All right, cable penetration measures. Homes passed, or HP, is the number of households that have access to and therefore have the option to subscribe to cable. This would be kind of similar to the reach statistic that we talked about earlier. If a cable service runs past your house, you would be counted in the homes passed figure, whether or not you actually subscribe to cable. Meanwhile, cable penetration is the percentage of TV households that actually subscribe to basic cable service. Churn is the ratio of disconnecting subscribers to newly connecting cable subscribers. So churn is that idea of trying to keep track of how many new people are subscribing to cable and how many are dropping off. And hopefully more people are connecting than are disconnecting, at least in the eyes of the cable operator. So that's going to do it for this part of the notes. We will finish things up with part D of Chapter 5.